We are watching a live news conference from the Milwaukee Fire Department. Let's listen in.
And several, I'm not sure of the number, approximately 30-pound propane tanks, along with smaller acetylene tanks and oxygen. The fire was contained to that external storage building. The fire is out. It is under control, except we are still doing a little bit of follow-up to make sure, first of all, that we don't have something underneath the structure that's still burning. We have a little bit of smoldering underneath there. And we do have our hazmat team doing an assessment not only of the atmosphere to the east of here for any airborne particulates, but also any of the water, the runoff that we had, to make sure we don't have any hazmat getting into the waterways or into the sewer system.
Were those all the propane tanks? I know you mentioned there were a number of...
I don't know how many, and I don't know, we haven't entered back in to that structure yet. The structure is completely destroyed. It did collapse in on itself during one of the explosions. So what we've got is an external building that's been completely destroyed. The good news is everybody exited the building. All of the workers from the business exited the building prior to our arrival. They gave us great information when we did arrive as far as what we needed to do to mitigate this problem. There were no injuries, and the building or the business will remain open. The amount of damage that they had here on this external building won't stop their processes, and it won't stop them from working. So we will keep all of those jobs here.
Chief, how do you approach an explosion like this, propane, knowing that there are no injuries?
Right. You know, one of the biggest things that we have when you arrive on these and you have the fire that is still building and you have explosions that are happening, naturally we have to keep our distance. That's why you'll see that we had water towers put up, and we put a large volume of water on the structure and on the exposure structure, which is the main fire building. Our main focus when we arrived was, first of all, to get a census to make sure that everybody is out of that building and nobody is injured. But our first lines go to protecting the business. So when we do have that much involvement, we have to work back from a distance, which is master streams on a ladder, and we're dumping water onto the building to keep the main business building, to keep it from catching fire. The secondary lines, again, large lines from a distance, will then go on to that building that was burning. We'll contain it, first of all, we'll contain it to that area that it's in, protect the exposures, and then go ahead and move forward. As we get a handle on it, then we move closer and closer for extinguishment.
Chief, the hazardous materials truck still here on the scene. What, if any, concerns did you have for those hazardous materials, and what, if any, remain right now?
Naturally, anytime you're working in any type of a plating business like this, in their processes and what they do, they use a great deal of chemical intervention throughout it in their processes. So we want to make sure that, first of all, we didn't have chemicals that were burning, releasing that product into the atmosphere. And if we did, then we have to move downrange and evacuate people. Secondary, as we're putting all that water on there, we have to be careful, because a lot of the products that are out there, a lot of the chemicals will react violently with water. So working with the folks down here at this business, we worked on our game plan as far as what we were going to do and how we were going to approach this. Hazmat is brought in anytime we get this type of event, simply because they bring a great deal of expertise monitoring the equipment, not only, again, for the air, but also for the waterways. DNR has been notified. MMSD has been notified. I mean, everybody has been notified that the potential exists for there to be some sort of contamination. As of this time, we don't have any. The Milwaukee Police Department has been working closely with us to evacuate buildings to the east, just in the event that something did get airborne. At this time, we've got no information that says that. It's precautionary only.
Deputy Chief, back to the cause for a moment. Can you explain exactly what you believe happened here?
Don't know what the cause is yet. My fire investigator is over here, but typically in these types of things, and I'm speculating just a little bit, but usually it's when you're filling or changing bottles. Usually it'll find an ignition source of some sort. I don't know. It is still under investigation.
Are you exploring the possibilities of the hose to bring the propane that's not properly connected?
Our fire investigator will investigate all of those possibilities, yes.
With this being an industrial situation, how does that change the investigation?
Well,
who gets involved?
You know, the building inspection department for the city of Milwaukee is already here because they're concerned about the integrity of the building. The DNR will come out and take a look. Of course, the MMSD will come out because their waterway runs right in behind here. There's a whole host of agencies that will come in to either conduct their own investigation, but also assist us with our investigation.
What can you tell us about the volatility of propane?
Well, I mean, everybody, you fire your gas grill with propane, and you see what happens. Even in that controlled environment when it's running under relatively low pressure. You can imagine what happens when we get this much fire involved on a 100-pound propane tank. You can imagine, the problems with that. We did have some explosions early on when we did arrive, which explains the cautious nature of our fire attack in the first place and just protecting the main building.
Chief, what happens from here on out? Some of these roads are still closed off. You all are still here on the scene. What, if anything, can you share for the safety of people in the neighborhood, or what people need to know about what's going to be happening?
Again, and great question. For the safety of the people in the neighborhood, we are monitoring the atmosphere, particularly as we move downrange. In this case, it's to the east. We had the buildings around there evacuated early on in the event simply because we didn't know what may be airborne. And as it turns out, I don't have any information of anything getting airborne that would be a hazardous material. We were just simply being cautious, and it was a precautionary move anyway.
How long before you find that out, if there's anything?
That depends on the speed of the investigation. I have no idea.
How long do you guys plan to be on the scene here?
I would expect that until Hazmat finishes up their work, for us, again, it'd be speculating. Don't know. It'll be a couple hours, I'm sure. The fire investigators will probably be here for the remainder of the day.
So some of these workers might be able to get back to plant at some point today.
I would certainly hope so, yes.
Before you go, can you give us kind of a heads down there as how many firefighters
This went to a second alarm plus special calls, and what that means is, on a first alarm we get 3 engines, 3 ladder companies, a heavy rescue, a paramedic unit, a couple of chiefs, and a safety officer. We went to a second alarm almost immediately simply because we were separated geographically the way we had to approach this, brought in additional resources in case we did have to play catch up a little bit. And then beyond that second alarm, we did ask for 2 more engines to come in and stand by, in which we never used. So this was a 2 alarm and a little bit more.
Chief, appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. We're all set? Perfect.
Deputy Fire Chief Terry Lintonen from the Milwaukee Fire Department updating all of us on exactly what went down earlier this morning. Propane explosion and then subsequent fire. Right now, the great news from the chief, nobody hurt, but there are some environmental concerns that are lingering.
Right, the DNR has been notified, MMSD, simply because there could be some issues. They don't know. There's nothing that would indicate that there are problems, but they just want to be safe and sure that nothing has contaminated the water or sewer system in that area. This is a live picture of the scene right now, talking about the outlying building that was destroyed with this apparent tanker or propane tank explosion. You can see he called the building a total loss and pretty much is destroyed.
But one building apparently is part of a larger complex at this company, so looks like he was hopeful that business would resume at the company today, if not continue in short order at Acme Galvanizing there on the south side of Milwaukee. We're talking about the neighborhood of about 19th and Cleveland.
And one employee did tell us that about 30 employees were working at the time of the explosion, and the deputy chief telling us that everyone did get out safely. As we wrap our coverage up for now, this has been a breaking news update from today's TMJ4. We'll have another update coming your way at about 10:25.